And in a year, in 2016, where he was the only Republican candidate for governor in the country, who was able to win in a state that Clinton won, and then enjoying similar success in 2018 and 2020, separate from the specific question of why we have not succeeded in putting a serious dent in Governor Sununu, what can we learn from this sort of Teflon appearance that he has politically? What can we learn for 2022, whether he runs for governor or U.S. Senate or whatever, that can help us both in dealing with Governor Sununu politically, as well as maybe things that we can learn about what he has done successfully that we might be able to frankly replicate, if not his policies, at least some of his political strengths that he appears to have, because he does seem like a unique political figure in some ways nationally. What?
Let's see if this. Okay, yeah. All right. So the audio's back. I don't know how much of that got missed. That's sorry. I'm really sorry about that, folks. So yeah, like I said, if that was a bummer. Technical difficulties. So for anybody who doesn't know, I'm talking about the NHDP debate that was hosted by Rights and Democracy. We're starting off with Steve Marchand asking the current chairman, Ray Buckley, about Sununu's Teflon appearance, how we deal with him in future races, if he's actually going to, run for U.S. Senate or something like that against Maggie Hassan. So that's sort of where we're at. That's what we're discussing. We're going to run over this, and I will sort of go back over whatever was discussed at the beginning if my mic was off. So I apologize, and we'll talk about that then. Jonah will be on the show in a minute. Here we go.
What can we learn from that?
Well, let's look back to 2016. Every public poll and even our private polls showed Colin Van Oosten winning by a sizable margin, more than 5%. The closeness of the U.S. Senate race, where we defeated Kelly Ayotte by 1,017, and the closeness is the closest race for a swing state for Hillary Clinton. There were about 30,000 or so voters that were electrified by Facebook or some communication, and you saw that a lot of the other swing states fell, but New Hampshire held on. Our sister states of Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Michigan. We were able to do that because of the grassroots networks that we have here. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough for Colin. In 2018, the polling showed just a week and a half ahead of time that Molly Kelly had brought the race to a tie. The RGA came in with an unprecedented amount of millions of dollars to support Chris Sununu. That just never happened in history before, where either the DGA or RGA came in for an incumbent governor. So they came in and spent millions of dollars on attack ads. And unfortunately, we were unable to get, the DGA had already promised the resources to Florida and to a number of other states, and they didn't have the resources to give. I think everyone knows about my very public dissatisfaction with the DGA over that. And so we wanted to make sure that we were prepared this time. So not only had we secured the agreement of the DGA to support our nominee, which came in with about $1.1 or $1.2 million this cycle, But we also raised extra money to set aside that we could be able to come in and be supportive of our candidate. So if the polls showed that the race was tied, that we were going to be able to have the resources to.
Hold on one second. Jonah is here, but we're having some audio issues. I'm gonna get him sorted out so that he can hear what's going on. Let me see here. It's been a little bit since we've done this, folks. I don't know if anybody can tell, but yeah. Jonah, can you hear me now? No?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, I can't hear you.
One second.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
No, man, we're doing all right. We're trying. Let me check on this here. No. There we go. Hold on one second. How about now? No? Shucks. Let me see here.
To push over the top. Unfortunately,
Hold on one moment, folks. We're going to see if we can sort out these technical difficulties, and I will be right back. How about now?
It's sort of a feeling, I think, a melodic feeling, or just say a certain kind of a thing to try to maybe show somebody something through music, even show myself something. because as I've discovered it myself, it's been a revelation. Maybe reveal something to someone else through the music, something that's good and something that they feel that maybe enriches their life a little bit or makes them feel better as a person or something like that.
Can you hear me right now? Okay, hold on.
Yeah, I think we've got something.
Yeah, now I can hear your voice.
You can hear mine too? Okay, good. All right. Yes. Cool. Yeah. Great, great. Do you know what's causing it? Like, it's all good.
Okay, folks. We're still dealing with some serious problems here. I have Jonah on, and he can hear everything. We can do this, but the problem is Jonah can't hear the video. This is not my favorite situation to be in right now. Look, here's what we'll do. Okay, like Jonah, have you seen this debate already? Have you
I've seen most of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I've seen the important stuff.
So here's what we'll do. We can, if people like, if anybody who's watching this wants us to sort of like go into this more like next week, we can totally do that. And I want to. Let's do like a very peripheral sort of like take on this without the video element right now. I think we'll get away with it, mainly because there's a lot to point to. So, all right. Let's start with you, Jonah. What were your takeaways from this? Like,
I mean, my first takeaway was just just like how stark a contrast it is between like who is leading the Democratic Party now and who wants to lead it. I mean, just Emmett's hold and grasp on policy and bringing it back to the policy like all the time and bringing it back to his vision and how he wants to win that is the reason I support Emmett, and it was interesting to see that stark contrast. I think my biggest takeaway was just how I'm trying to be careful with my words here. But just how much of I don't know, just like what Ray was like. I don't even. That's what I'll say. Like it was just so surprising to see like what Ray was actually like. I had never seen him talk in like a long form situation like that and face questions from the public. It's always been like seen him on MUR interviews or something like that.
Or just popping off on Twitter. Yeah.
Exactly. Popping off on Twitter, and you don't get to see like a person's real principles, or like you don't get to.
Speaking
really
at the
hear.
DNC, like the
exactly,
conventions,
like that's
and
just a speech, and you don't really get to know what that person is talking about. So to hear him not be able to answer the questions over and over and over again, when Steve Marchand was like, "Okay, but like, what are we going to do to win?" and then he'll pivot. He does the politician pivot, and it's just like he'll go on about he went on for like minutes.
The thing that kind of shocked me about it, honestly, is like the amount of times he just like categorically disagreed with the premise of the question that was being asked, and like just was kind of very dismissive of the problem. Like, you know, there was a question that was asked that was essentially like, what do we do about the fact that New Hampshire Dems have been losing rural votes just like across the board? Ray's immediate response is like, well, that's a national problem. We've been having a discussion about that nationally, and really the solution is to go in, you know, it's like how do we get over the Facebook and Fox and like all that? And he's like,
we've been having a discussion for years about it, for years. And I was like shocked at that. I was like, oh, okay, well, while you're having these discussions and talks or strategy meetings or whatever, you're losing like, or you're allowing all of these people to slip into fascism. It's like you slip into supporting Trump or whatever you want to call it. And it's, you know, like part of me like, I don't know, like, does he think these strategies are working? Like that's my biggest takeaway is from it. Where does it, like, where is it genuine and where is it not? Because like some of this is just objectively not true. Like, so, like the rural voter stuff, like I don't know if they've actually been having those conversations. I'd like to know how much of that is actually true and how much of that is just stuff they have to say so that Emmett doesn't win, you know?
Well, I mean, so like here's my thing that like something that I noticed about like a lot of his answers is like, well, if you go back and you look at the data over the course of, you know, 2 decades, you actually see that, you know, we've really trended in the blue direction. I'm like, you know, my thing is like, I don't give 2 shits about an average. Like, I really don't. And nobody else cares about that either. Yes, from a data analytics perspective, sure, you can absolutely say that the state has trended blue and that's a positive direction, but it doesn't like statistics have nothing to do with like the effectiveness of a policy. And when I hear someone talking like that, I think about like, well, what you're doing is you're trying to basically excuse and use like incrementalism as a defense against not being more aggressive with your policy in the first place, right? Like going for what you genuinely believe in, as opposed to kind of like meeting in the middle, what Sebastian refers to later as sort of like in his question as Republican light. And I think that's a really great description of the way we approach just like thinking about operating in a political context within this state. And Ray's very much so like analytical, data-based thing is like, it's just, I don't think it's going to be as effective. You know, like,
no, it's not at all, and it's also not going to win a general election. It's like, I don't think he, as the party chair, will win another general election again ever, unless some national news media comes like I think like the reason we had won in 2008. I think, like, I'm not a political scientist, so this could be wrong, but we won like large majorities in 2008. I think a lot of that was the Obama effect, and we had a national leader at the top of the ticket who was energizing Democrats up and down the ticket, and that had nothing to do with Ray Buckley as party chair fundraising for state house candidates who then won a majority.
Right.
That has to do with a national leader energizing people the same way the same thing we're trying to do here with Emmett. Energizing people so that they join the party, just like Obama did. The Obama effect, we've lost that completely and entirely, in part because Obama failed at a lot of his promises, and totally allowed. we could go into Obama. It's a total other conversation. But Obama failed, and now we're facing the consequences of not having been much more bold in taking back the country from corporate control in 2008 and in the financial crisis. And I think we're like that same thing is going to happen. We have full control again. So I worry that same thing is going to happen on a national level, which will affect the majorities here on a state level, and then the Republicans in 2022 or 2024 just expand on the majorities in the state house and are allowed to do even more of the fucked up crazy shit that they're doing right now. And it's just, if we like Ray, I don't know if like I really worry that Ray just doesn't understand that, just doesn't like, he's been so entrenched in this world, and this is the problem with so many of those senators, the congressmen, that they've been entrenched in this world for so long that they've been talking to the personalities, the media personalities, the talk show hosts, that they've totally disconnected themselves from what's going on in the real world. And the only like metric that they have to pin themselves into it are those statistics. Like like the only thing Ray can point to, because he doesn't know what working people are going through, is, oh, but Democrats have won before, like, so we could win again, right? Like he's just like, it's all about statistics. It's like,
yeah, well, there's also a whole lot of him like pawning it off on other people too, right? Like,
yeah, and
so like
just shifting blame. And
and I think about where, like at one point he's talking about 2018, and he's talking about, well, I think he's answering Laura Lynch's question about like, why was there no support for down ballot candidates? And his thing was like, well, look, the way, it went really well in 2018 because, so we thought it was working fine. And the second I heard that, I was like, do you remember what happened in do you remember 2018? Because there was a blue wave that everybody rode. So that like, it didn't matter how garbage or how effective your specific delineation was, because everybody was so pissed about Trump. Like, everybody was so mad. So like, you can't pin that success on be like, well, we thought it was working fine. It's like, no, you just didn't want to look at like your own inefficiencies. And then beyond that, right, like, because there's more of these examples, like there's plenty more of this stuff. Later on, he talks about how if it weren't for Maggie Hassan and Jeanne Shaheen, Mitch McConnell would still have all of this power. He's talking about how they're somehow the critical votes. You know what? Every single fucking Democratic senator was a critical vote. Every single state chair that has a Democratic senator can say that to their people. So that means absolutely nothing. Like, it means it is a worthless statement. It is an absolutely worthless statement. And if you got any comfort out of that statement, then you need to I would encourage anybody who seriously heard that and thought like, that's right. Like, I need you to really assess your perception of reality. Like on a base level, because that's just like it's utterly dismissive of actual dynamics. Now, when you get to the part of this debate where Emmett starts talking, when these questions come up, Emmett actually hands over very, very concise mechanisms by which we will empower the down ballot, right? Giving them access to the same voter registration information that the party has. Like, what? Why are we not doing that? What exactly, the hell? Yeah. The fact that
the fact that town party chairs aren't a part of the party process, that's so that is ridiculous. It's undemocratic, and people, the reason we lose independence, the reason we lose those voters that aren't paying attention to politics and see it on like a surface level, like people that watch TV and then participate in politics on that very, very surface level. They're not like inundated with it like we are every day. People aren't dumb. Like, I think one of the problems that this like the Democratic Party, leaders in the Democratic Party, they talk about people as if they're dumb. They talk about rural people as if they're dumb, as if they don't know what they're talking about, as if they don't know what they're doing. These people can see that you're being undemocratic. These people can see that you stole an election from a candidate who they supported and energized, and then a decent chunk, Sanders, and then a decent chunk of those people were like, oh, the Democratic Party is going to steal this election. Well, I'm never going to support a Democrat again. And I heard that so much on the ground. I'm never going to support a Democrat again because they did this to Sanders. Same thing in 2020. And it will be the same thing over and over and over again until the Democratic Party becomes democratic. and starts actually fighting for and pushing for democracy.
Right.
Through and through. And I think that's what Emmett represents and wants. And you know, like I put out a tweet. It was like, if people think that like all this engagement in the process would be happening if Emmett wasn't running, if like none of this engagement in the party would be happening at all if it was just Ray. Ray isn't bringing in anybody new. And what we need to be doing right now as a party is bringing new people in, bringing those people that we have disaffected and lost over 40 years after the DLC and all this changing of the Democratic Party from its roots. You know, go back to our roots is essentially what I'm saying. Like it's so simple. It's so right there. It's so common sense, and it's insane to see like so many people just be like just disconnect themselves from reality because of just whatever. It doesn't even matter. I mean, the same thing with like Biden. Like you see the kids like everything he's doing right now is so disappointing. It's so gross. But where's the outrage? Where's the you know, like where's the town of Peterborough passing an article or something like that? Like,
I just don't get it. Like I mean, for me, it really does at a very, very base level come down to like, wait a minute, we've got two people up here. When asked, should Democratic chairs, like town Democratic chairs, be voters, like have voting power within your party, when one of them says, I'd be interested to hear more about it. It could take a while. And then the other one says, absolutely yes. Like, okay, we're talking about literal democracy. We're talking about like something that is a more democratic thing. We're talking about within the Democratic Party. So my question to anybody that supports Ray, and I mean this seriously, is like, how do you explain to me that you support a less democratic person to be in charge of a party that is called the Democratic Party? Like, that makes no sense to me. And like, again, it's like, I don't understand like the aversion to that sort of like local level. I think like Ray's spent a lot of time mired in like the national politics of it. And like, you know what? If anybody wants to learn about this, I would actually say go and watch some of Namiki Khan's stuff on her YouTube channel, because she actually is like a friend of Ray's. She's had him on. Yeah, totally. Like they work together in the DNC. Like, this is, and he was on her side. Like Ray did a lot of great work to try and bring things more centered in the national context. Like, that's cool and all. On the state level, he's dicked us over completely. Like, and you know, like, and I'll get frustrated listening to Nomiki's stuff because she'll be like really toting him, and I'm like, dude, you don't know what Ray's doing in his home state. Like, you're not seeing this on the ground, and it's like, it's aggravating, but I understand that he did great work, and like, I understand that, like, look, for somebody that comes from the 1970s doing what he's doing the 18 years he's in that, like, I understand his mindset. I get that. It's just antiquated. It's just outdated.
I don't know though, because there are so many people that have done that work, that activism work in the 1970s, like Angela Davis or something like that.
Yeah, you're right.
The same stuff that like Ray did. And I just like, I think at a certain point, it goes back to the conversation we had a couple of months or last year in the summer about wealth making you lose compassion. I think some of that has happened to Ray Buckley. I think after being, and I think like a part of that is also like, when you get into these positions of power, you also lose some of that compassion. It's easy to get into like I don't know. It's so hard to describe like the social circles around politics, but I think that is a big problem too. Like these people are friendly and like affable, and they start to get into like the this is just out of the way it is sort of thing. And I think that's sort of after such a long time where Ray has gotten to. I don't think his intentions are bad at all. I think that he's totally separated himself from reality here. And the fact of the matter is, like, the Democratic Party right now should be led by like a young, energetic vision person who has a vision, who, like we said, is going to actually make it a democratic party.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the other, you know, as sort of like, we gotta take off in a minute because I got somewhere I gotta be, but
yeah, of course.
sort of like the last thing I wanted to say about it too is that like the one other thing that really jumped out to me is that like at one point he's like when Ray is talking, he says something about like, 10 years ago or whatever, like I would never have imagined that this would be possible. Like he says that statement, and like the thought that went through my head at that moment, I was like, I do not want a leader who cannot imagine like what we might consider impossible today and shoot for it right now. Like when Emmett says, I have a 10-year plan, like I think about like he probably actually has a very cohesive idea and target of like, no, this is how we're going to completely take it over. And we're going to like, even if we don't necessarily meet all those marks, we're going after it, right? Like I'm going to envision this no matter how unlikely it is. I will imagine this possible version of New Hampshire government that like serves its people like this. And yeah, it might not seem like it's even remotely possible to do it within the next 10 years because of gerrymandering. But at the very least, we have the like we've thought about it. We think about like it matters to us. And when I think about like Ray saying, well, at this point in time, I couldn't have imagined us being where we are now. I think, well, then that means that you're not capable of imagining the progress that we need to make right now to be where we would be at 10 years from now. So you like, you know what I mean? Like there's no,
exactly. I mean, I totally agree. If I would never want a leader who can't imagine winning. I would never want a leader like whose imagination is so blocked to the idea of like, or just anyone who concedes. I just don't want anyone who concedes an election early. I don't want anyone like no election is unwinnable. Like at a certain point, there are trends in elections. There are like people are entrenched in a certain way, but I think every election is winnable. And it's just I totally agree. No one should shut their imagination out to winning, especially in a state like this. And I think that's the problem with the mentality is he has done that. He feeds like, oh, but this is a state where Republicans could win. Blah, 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 blah. That's the wrong mentality to have. This is a state where we can win.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. I just, like the lack of imagination just seems to be not like, it's just aggravating to me because it's like, there's so little like, it's that imagination. I mean, like, like I've been trying to like separately follow all the like economic stuff that's happening with like the stock market and everything. So that's funny. That's really funny. If whatever, but just reading up on it more, it's like it's exposed me to different concepts that I can now like kind of reapply in different ways. And I think about it like, it's like if we think about this like in terms of value, like I look at like what Ray says as sort of like actually a fairly bearish or like cynical take on where we are or where we can be at, where it's constantly trying to like knock us down to reality with data, right? And that's very much so like, I mean, in the economic context, that's very much so a style of trading where you look at like the numbers all the way through. And then there's a totally different type of trader that focuses on fundamentals, right? And I think in this context, Emmett's argument is much more of a fundamental argument, right? We're talking about like the bare bones, like ingredients that make our communities, that make things possible, right? It's not like we're not talking about like the history and movement of data or data points. We're literally talking about the people on the ground. And I think that like that shift is a very welcome thing for New Hampshire voters. They want that more fundamentalist approach to things. They want that more like holistic view. And I think ultimately that's like, to go back to that economics term, if Ray Buckley is the bear, then Emmett's the bull, right? Emmett's being really, really positive and really, really optimistic about like the incredible gains that we could potentially make in this state by fighting for things, right? It's like, and that's just sort of like that last little bit that I want to kind of tack on for my end is like,
I mean, we live in an oligarchy right now. Like that, like it's gotten so bad right now. I've gotten so frustrated over the weekend because it's just you're watching these videos of like everything happened in the legislature happening, and it doesn't seem like they have so effectively through like the Reagan Revolution and all this stuff, so effectively gotten people to not care about their government that the government is now doing things that is leading towards it being like a totalitarian oligarchy or whatever, like a total corporate controlled state where the corporations and the state have meshed together, and I'm just seeing that happen long term. That's what I think is happening through what they're doing with their policies. And like you said, New Hampshire voters are tired of that. They're tired of voting for aristocrats who are just in it to like jump from position, like they're playing a game, like they're like aristocrats that are totally playing a game. I think everyone, not even just in New Hampshire, everyone in the country wants to return to like principled leaders. Like I'm sure there's things that you can do. You can disagree with all of it, but like Teddy Roosevelt, FDR, like those firebrand people that took the positions they were in and made some radical changes and busted up like radically entrenched, powerful people. That's what people are looking for right now. And Joe Biden not doing that means that we could see the pendulum swing back to Trump. And Ray Buckley not doing that here on the state means we could see continued Republican control.
Yep.
So if we want to win as a party, if we want to get serious about actually passing these things, we just have to go. Let's start being true to our principles. It's just so sad to see everyone using principles as like some kind of game. Like if we're going to be true to our principles, let's not allow this country to slip into oligarchy, and let's not wait for an election cycle to do that. Let's do that with what we can right now. And right now, the step that we could do that with is Emmett as chair.
And that's the take.
That's the take.
But
we'll be back with more.
Yeah. Well, seriously. And I'm looking forward to anybody responding to this so that we can actually kind of like follow up on this next week. Yeah. So, but as for now, we're going to have to shut it down for today. But hey, everybody, thanks for bearing with us with the technical difficulties. I promise we'll have that solved next week so that we can actually do like the real show. But yeah, Jonah, awesome to see you. Thanks for coming in.
All right.
We'll catch up later. Awesome. Right. Catch y'all later. Bye.